This morning in the backstory, August 29th will mark the 20th year since Hurricane Katrina.
It was the most devastating natural disaster in U.S. history. It tore through the Gulf Coast with catastrophic power. And now, 20 years later, a new Nat Geo 5-part docuseries explores the wide-ranging impacts of that hurricane. Joining the conversation now is Oscar-nominated director Traci A. to talk more about the series, Hurricane Katrina: Race Against Time. Traci, nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Talk about some of the backstory here. How familiar were you with the hurricane before taking on this really big project?
Yeah, I think I was as familiar as, all of us who experienced it as spectators, watching it on television, where I think as we kind of got into the series and really listened to what the people of New Orleans, the people who survived this and lived this, had to tell us, it really became quickly apparent that what happened was much more complex than I think a lot of us sort of remember in our memories. That in fact, while Katrina was in fact the name of the storm that came, and it was a massive, very violent storm. The storm did not directly hit New Orleans. And so the story that really emerged and that we set out to tell in the series was about how what started as a natural disaster eventually became a man-made catastrophe. And that really is the story that we're told by the people of the city and that we are telling in the series.
So talk more about what viewers will get in this 5-part Nat Geo series.
Yeah, so you will get a story that I think is very immersive, that is very personal. One of the things that early on we heard from General Honore, who you'll see in the series and kind of came in to begin writing the ship in New Orleans, is that Katrina is what you experienced, where you were, and what you saw. And so we moved forward with the understanding that we needed to gather as many pieces of those experiences as possible to begin even trying to put together something that felt whole in this very complex and layered story. So you'll see so many different perspectives from the first responders who, kind of not knowing what even became of their own homes and families, went out and began saving lives, citizens who did the same, people who were trapped in the Superdome, people who were trapped in their attics, people who were left exposed in the heat on the highway. And so you'll see as many of those perspectives on what it was to survive and live through Katrina through the experiences of the people who lived it, as we were able to gather to tell the story.
I'm curious, there was obviously a ton of footage to pour through for this. Talked with a lot of people, got a lot of insight. What surprised you the most while putting this together?
Yeah, well, first I have to give a shout out to the whole team of people who all worked tirelessly sorting through this hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage. And I think one of the most surprising things that you'll see in the series in terms of the footage is there's one of the people that we interview. His name's Shelton in the series, who's just a fantastic and warm and lovely person. And Shelton began filming before the storm happened, through the arrival of the storm, through his time in the Superdome, and afterwards. And one of the things that you'll see through his footage is that a lot of the story that got told about how people comported themselves in New Orleans and in the Superdome in particular was completely false. That there's the stories that people had sort of descended into this predatory, animalistic state, when in fact the opposite was true. Obviously, you're always going to have opportunists who take advantage during disaster, but for the most part, the story of the people of New Orleans, and that you will see told in this, is that in the most inhumane of conditions, the people of New Orleans did not lose their humanity. They in fact showed up for one another, and that these ties of kinship and family and care and community that people in New Orleans had always had for each other did not break, even though the systems that were supposed to keep them safe did.
Yeah, there's so much resiliency there. So talk about those systems some more. What kind of impacts are people on the Gulf Coast still seeing today due to Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah, I think it's very much a mixed bag. There's certainly a success story to be told here about New Orleans, the city bouncing back, and you go there, and it still very much feels like the New Orleans that all of us who come as visitors know and love. The city now has a multi-million-dollar levee system protecting it and evacuation plans in place. But you dig a little deeper and you go a little farther into the city, and you understand that for some people there has been no recovery. You will see footage in episode 5 of the series from a neighborhood called the Lower Ninth Ward, which was one of the hardest hit sections of the city. It was completely underwater. I believe experienced the largest loss of life. And there are parts of that community that look today like Katrina could have happened last week, that they're
Wow.
just grassy plots of land where there used to be a house. And that's the loss of a family, a legacy, a life, generations of wealth. And for those people, there's been no recovery and no restoration. So I would say it's very much a mixed bag in terms of the progress 20 years later.
It's going to be a powerful watch. Traci, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and congratulations on putting this all together. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
We should note the series premieres Sunday night at 7 o'clock on Nat Geo, then streams on Disney and Hulu. So give that a watch for sure.